welcome back. Today I wanted to film a video about solo travel, specifically just a few tips about female solo travel, because even though the week and a half that I spent in America by myself was amazing, I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't quite nervous about the trip beforehand. I'd be lying if I said that a lot of people weren't concerned. My parents, my siblings, family, friends. Lots of people asked me if I was sure that I wanted to go to America by myself, and to be honest, at that stage I'd wanted to go to New York for so long. I'd just graduated from university, my personal life was a bit complicated, and to be honest, I just really needed a break. And even though it would have been amazing if someone had come along with me to America, it was also equally amazing and kind of cathartic to go by myself. And I definitely don't regret it, and would travel again pretty much in a heartbeat. But like I said, I'd be lying if I didn't admit that there was a bit of trepidation before the trip, so I thought I would share 5 tips. Tips for solo travel in general, and if you're a female by yourself. So let's get started. 1 and 2 are, firstly, share your travel itinerary with someone, and secondly, have credit cards, IFPOS cards, and cash. So the first one is super common sense. Before I left for my trip to the States, and before that when I went to Malaysia and Thailand with a friend, I made sure that my flight details, the hotels I was staying in, were sent to my dad for a very simple reason. If something goes wrong, he would know where to find me and where I should be at a specific time. The second one is also pretty straightforward. To be honest, in Thailand, Malaysia, America, and when we go back to the Middle East, I find that prepaying for things on a credit card or a debit card and cash really are the easiest ways to manage money. That being said, you don't want to walk around with a huge wad of cash, obviously. So this is my advice. Carry some with you, but also leave some in your hotel room or your Airbnb or wherever you're staying, preferably somewhere locked. So the first night I landed in New York, I stayed in a twin share room, and now my roommate didn't end up showing up, so it wasn't a problem in the end at all, but there was a locker there. So I made sure that my laptop, my money, and anything else that was valuable like my passport was in there. I also brought a padlock, although that is something that should be included in the information about the hotel. Now of course fancier hotels like the Marriott, which is where I stayed for 3 nights while I was in New York, will have a lockbox with a PIN number, so you don't need to worry about a padlock. But to be honest, I don't think it's a bad thing to bring along with you when you're traveling anyway. It's not like it takes up that much room, and I say better to have it than to not have it. Now on the note of finances, the other thing that's a really good idea is to also have an IFPOS card and a credit card or a debit card, and to keep them in separate places. For example, I carry my IFPOS card with me at all times in my phone case, but then I carried my credit card in my travel wallet with my passport and my other information. Now the reason for having so many forms of income is simple. First of all, worst case scenario, your cash could get taken. Now I know it's not something that we like to think about, and ideally we'd be trying to be careful so that it doesn't happen, but I think it's always better to be prepared. And the second reason simply is you might run out of money. I ran out of money in almost every place that I visited simply because I underestimated how much shopping I was going to do. What can I say? America was full of amazing stores and amazing food. So that's number 1 and 2. Pretty basic, pretty straightforward, and apply pretty much whether you're traveling by yourself or traveling in a group. Now number 3 is a little bit more specific and a little bit, I hate to say, sensible. Now I'm going to be honest, I already filmed this video, filmed and edited it. But then I realized I said the word sensible about 50 million times, and I really didn't want that to be the approach. I didn't want people, women especially, going on a trip by themselves and constantly thinking that they have to be sensible. Now, of course, regardless of your gender, we do have to be sensible, even in our own backyards, let alone overseas. So that's where number 3 comes in, and that's simply be careful of strangers. Now again, I know stranger danger is literally something we teach kindergartners, but sometimes I think, at least I know for myself, I can be a bit gullible. So I want to tell a story. The first one is about a trip to Lululemon, where I went to buy some sportswear. You know how Lululemon works. You choose a few things you want to try on and you go to the changing room. They write your name on the changing room door, and one of the staff comes and checks on you regularly and just helps you in any way in general, which is actually really good customer service and kind of makes up for the fact that their clothes are so outrageously priced. But anyway, I was trying on a couple of pairs of tights and some sports bras, and one of the salespeople came and gave me a hand. And to be honest, he was lovely. He helped me with the sizing for a pair of tights that I wasn't sure about, bought me a few sports bras when the first ones that I grabbed didn't fit, and in general just chatted to me. Told me about his girlfriend who was moving to New Zealand to do IT, told me how he'd lived in New York for years and years when I mentioned that I'd been there, and in general was just really nice. But then I got to the counter and 2 things happened. First, he gave me a discount on the sports bras, even though they were already on discount. And second, and probably a bit more worrying, he gave me his number and told me to give him a call if I wanted to go for a run or do some yoga. Now I was taken aback, so I did what any woman would do in my situation. I took his number, I thanked him, I got out of the store, and I never called him again. obviously. Now, to be fair, this guy could have been lovely. He could have genuinely just wanted to be friendly to a tourist who was in the country for a few days. Who knows, he could have even invited his girlfriend along. But I didn't know that, and meeting with a stranger in a strange city by yourself really isn't wise. And I always think it's a good idea to ask yourself what the intentions of the person in front of you are, especially if they're being excessively nice to you. Now, the second story I want to tell also happened when I was in Chicago. I went on an architecture tour, which sounds really geeky but was actually amazing, even though it was bloody freezing outside. And this older couple from Maryland invited me to lunch. Now, I know I just said stranger danger, but I went along with them, and they were so nice. They were thinking about going to New Zealand, they had a few questions for me, and they even ended up giving me their number and their address and told me that if I was ever in Washington to give them a call. Now, this might not be fair, and this might be a little bit sexist, but here are two things that help me discern whether or not to trust a stranger. First of all, do I know what their intentions were? So the couple made it really clear that they were interested in going to New Zealand, they realised I was from New Zealand, and they were just inviting me to lunch. So if I wanted to leave at any stage, if I'd felt uncomfortable, I could have just left. On the other hand, the man from Lululemon, well, I had no idea what his intentions were. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a nice offer, but in New Zealand, retail staff don't really tend to ask their customers to go for runs with them. And the second thing that I use is whether or not there's a woman with them. I definitely felt safer going with that couple from Maryland because one of them was a woman. And the final thing I want to say is, I know this kind of sucks. A huge part of traveling is meeting people. A huge part of traveling is interacting with people you may have never interacted with before. But I also think it pays to be sensible. There it is, that word again that I hate so much. But in this case, I think it's true. Number 4 is choosing your place. Now, if you already have your heart set on somewhere, like I did with New York, then just ignore this. But if you don't, then the biggest tip I'm going to recommend for choosing where you want to go is choose a country where you can speak the language, if possible. Now, of course, that doesn't mean don't go to a country where you can't speak the language, but it definitely makes things easier. For example, when I was in Thailand, a lot of people in Thailand can speak English. It's a very touristy place. But the fact that I was with my friend who had a very rudimentary understanding of Thai was really helpful. Just like it was helpful to have her in Malaysia. And to be honest, if you're traveling by yourself, if you're a woman by yourself, or if you're just an inexperienced traveler, avoiding the hurdle of the language difference will definitely make life easier for you. And the second part of choosing your destination is thinking about the safety of the place you want to go. For example, me. I've been wanting to go to South America for a long time, but if I did, I would either do it in a group or I would go with a friend. I probably wouldn't travel to South America by myself, and that's literally because it isn't the safest place in the world, especially if you're a woman traveling by yourself. Similarly, I'm from the Middle East, and if I had a female friend who wanted to travel by herself to the Middle East, with the exception of probably Dubai, I'd probably warn her against it, to be honest. Even me, I can speak Arabic, but to be honest, there are some parts of the Middle East I wouldn't venture to by myself. Again, I hate this word, but being sensible is wise. Now, I know some countries like New Zealand and America have websites where they give you a bit of information about travel destinations that include how safe or not safe the country that you want to visit is. So again, if you're undecided, I definitely recommend checking that out. Number 5 is a travel group. Now, I know this is kind of counterintuitive to the whole traveling by yourself, but bear with me. Now, when I went to New York, I spent 4 days and 3 nights with a Contiki, and then I spent another 4 days by myself. And if I'm gonna be completely honest, it was one of the best experiences of my life. I met some really awesome people, had some really cool experiences, and it was just a really good way to ease myself into America and into New York. Now, I know Contikis are a little bit more expensive, but to be honest, the difference isn't that major, and considering the fact that they took us on all the touristy things that you want to do in New York anyway, like the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, and arrange a New Year's Eve party, not to mention the stress and the hassle that it takes off your plate, well, for me at least it was worth it. The other thing I want to say is that it really helps you get your bearings, especially in bigger cities, and it's a good compromise if you're split extrovert-introvert, which I definitely am. I am most certainly an extrovert, 70% according to my last Myers-Briggs test, but I'm also relatively introverted, and I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoyed the 4 days in New York by myself and the 7 days in Chicago by myself. But having done the Contiki meant that A, I got my extrovert fix, and B, it meant that I got my bearings in New York, which, if you didn't know, is a bloody huge city. And the best example I can give for that is learning how to use the subway, which is a little bit tricky at first, but becomes very intuitive very quickly. Having my tour guide explain something as simple as, downtown New York is where the Statue of Liberty is, uptown New York is more Manhattan, and Brooklyn is east. And basically, as long as the train you've chosen is going the right direction, you'll probably be fine. Oh, and also use Google Maps. Thank God for Google Maps. So I guess my best advice, the way I did it, and the way, to be honest, I'd do it again, is to spend a few days with a travel group and do the rest by yourself. That way you get the best of both worlds. And the final point I want to make about being in a travel group kind of goes back to my previous point. If there's a place that you really want to go, but kind of is a little on the unsafe side, for me, South America, then why not do it in a travel group? And like I said, yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but not actually that much more expensive, and the hassle that it saves you and the opportunity to make really cool friends was well worth it, at least for me. Now, I know I said there were going to be 5 tips, but I thought I'd just mention this one because it's actually really, really important. So number 6 is, again, common sense, but really, really important, and it is get travel insurance. Now, I'm cheap. I'd so much rather spend my money on shoes or clothes or food than spend a few $100s on travel insurance that, to be honest, most likely I won't need. The thing is, especially if you're traveling by yourself, it's really, really important to have just in case, especially in a country like America where you need health insurance for everything. I feel like if I was a tourist coming to New Zealand, I might risk it just because of ACC, but definitely not in East Asia and definitely not in a country like America. It's better to have it and not need it than to not have it and to need it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing like sit down, more chatty, like advice videos like this. These are things I'd usually write blogs about, but I've been thinking recently, why not just post a video about it? So if you're interested in more stuff like that, as well as the spoken word, subscribe, like, do all the things that people know to do on YouTube. Until next time, bye.